In your journey, when we first attempted to talk about Startups for Breakfast as a platform, what we do, why we want to do, sincerely appreciate your time. It is something like giving back to the society.
Absolutely.
A lot of guys out there. So I asked this question to my earlier panelists also. One of the biggest challenge what we have that, there could be a professionally qualified medical practitioner. It could be from Trivandrum, could be from Chennai, could be from Jumri Talaya. There's a place of Jumri Talaya in Jharkhand, right? Or it could be from Kolkata, or it could be from Delhi, doesn't matter. But when you, similarly technology guy, a B.Tech guys from all these parts of the country. They're all B.Tech, they are all MBBS, they are all qualified from the respective parts of the country. And the title is the same, the graduation is the same. But if you try and put them under one roof, we are talking about skills, right? There emerges a very huge amount of reflexive knowledge expression. I call it a reflexive knowledge expression. There's a variance.
Yeah.
The India is being suffering on account of being majorly driven through vernacular medium.
Yes.
A statistic says that close to 71% of this country's population cannot communicate with each other just because their access to English is pathetic, right? A guy from Chennai, guy from Delhi, if they have to converse with each other, they have to talk to each other like we are conversing in English today, right? The earlier panelist today who came was saying that even astrology can become a kind of a startup idea. And he was talking in Hindi continuously, non-stop for about 15 minutes. And I was blank for 70%. Not because I don't follow Hindi, just because the kind of a script what he was using, it was actually difficult for me to follow. To cut short the long background, the point which I'm trying to say is that there's a good amount of development initiative, be it in healthcare or in startup ecosystem, the government of India is doing. The naming of the schemes. They are in very complex Hindi words. You also took some word. I was wanting to ask that what exactly does it mean, but I kept silent. I said, let me take appropriate moment to say that. Why is that we don't give the importance to the 20 to 21% of the people? Those who hail from 5 southern states have a little or zero exposure to Hindi as a mainstream language. That's my first question. Second, in the startup ecosystem, you being an evangelist, you've been promoting many startups across the country. People, those who have brilliant idea from the vernacular medium, they never see the light of the day. They just don't go beyond a point just because their access to protocol, which demands to communicate a pitch document to be in English. Your VC communication need to be in English. You need to go and meet a PE. You need to be well conversant in English. Is non-existent. It could be a guy from UP, it could be a guy from Coimbatore or Madurai, anywhere you name them, right? So our assessment says 87% of startup ideas gets killed because it doesn't leave the home or the garage, what in US they call it, right? So what's your take on this? It's a very long background.
Ravi, let me attempt to answer your second question first. It's a very complex, response, and it may have a lot of political colors. Language has been a political issue since independence. Okay, and I don't have a very strong view on this. As a matter of fact, after staying in multiple countries, I've stayed in some countries where when I heard someone speaking in English, I used to be very happy. This guy speaks English. Okay, just imagine. That was the time. I'm talking of roughly 30 years back. I used to stay in some of the European countries, Japanese countries, where English was a challenge because there is, So yes, definitely, challenges is there. I don't have a simple answer to this because this is a complex problem, and sometimes complex problem needs complex solutions. Ultimately, but let's try to understand the problem, how startups, 87% or whatever number you said, can overcome this stuff. I think my suggestion would be that startup has to first focus on what problem they're going to solving. Okay. So according to me, at a very high level, there are 3-4 problems when you talk about industry agnostic problems. One, how to give better service to the customer or service excellence. Second is that how do you increase the revenue? Third, of the end customer, or how do you optimize the cost, or how do you increase the operational efficiency? These are very, very broad level.
The broad level expectations and
Yes.
minimum expectations
Yes.
by any end customer
Yeah,
for that.
these are the four,
Yeah.
at very high level. Then, when you go to a specific problem or specific industry, then you go deep. But ultimately, if you're able to address some of these, the Shark Tanks, you must have seen a lot of startups which are coming up. They may not be speaking in English. So I think there are now players in the ecosystems which are either angel investors. I'm part of some of the angel investor community where a young startup comes. They may or may not be tech. They come out with an idea, and the guy who's speaking is not speaking in English for sure. But they are definitely speaking in Hindi. But maybe there is a Shark Tank equivalent which is in Tamil. Maybe there is Shark Tank equivalent which is in Telugu. Maybe there is Shark Tank equivalent which is in Kannada. When I went first time to Bangalore, I'm talking of 90 when I stayed in Bangalore. So for me, everything who is there in the south is a Madrasi guy. Okay. Similarly, whenever, when my landlord, because I'm in Punjabi, but non-Sikh Punjabi. So when almost after 1.5 years, when I was moving out of that place, and so they invited me for dinner, they asked, who are you? I said, I'm a Punjabi. They said, but you're not wearing a turban. So for them, Punjabi means
wearing a turban. Yeah.
And for me, anyone in the south means Madrasi.
Correct.
So these were the gaps even in a country after independence. I'm talking of almost 50 years of independence. We were not able to make a distinction between our fellow citizens across the landscape. So I think this is a long journey. But most important is that startup has to solve the problem first. There are enough players from angel investors to PE to VCs who will help them to make their pitch. There are management consultants who will make your pitch. They will speak for you. They will have your passion get translated into whatever language you want. See, unless you have that passion in place, nothing. Your core is your passion. Your core is that you have to make it visible to the world that I'm here to make a difference by solving a problem. Language plays an important role, but provided you have solved, the key problem which you want to solve.
Absolutely. And some of the business community from down west, Gujaratis are successful everywhere, and they necessarily don't speak
English.
Excellent English. I mean, they speak English.
Yeah,
No,
not the work. So you are very right.
Yeah. So
I think we have to solve the problem first.
Correct.
There are many players who will help you. Many players.
One more significant issue the healthcare industry in the country faces: disposal of bio-wastage. There are not very many startups who is very keen to do it. Could be radiation exposure or multiple other challenges. So what is the challenges involved in a bio disposal? If a startup need to address biodisposal as a startup idea, what do you think a startup need to be ready with?
So there are both good and bad things in this. And I have limited exposure, but being working in the healthcare industry for last 10 years, I think there are well-documented regulatory guidelines for disposable of each kind of items which are treated as waste from the hospital. Very well documented, which means that you don't have to apply much of the way. Now, what's not great is that all of these waste is disposable, waste is getting managed for last so many years, almost on a daily basis. So when you're trying to solve the problem, what you're bringing to the table. Are you bringing efficiency? Are you reducing the cost? Are you giving it in a very meaningful, environmental, sustainable method to dispose this? So how do you make a distinction? What value you bring? It's a simple hypothesis which is more of an oxymoron, if I may say. How do you do more with less? How proactive would you be? It's a more proactive, more productive, more value. Now you have to define what is this more? What value you are bringing to the table for a hospital or for your mechanism. So this is what the startup has to start thinking. Good thing is that they have a very well-defined boundaries. You can't say that, let me manage radioactive disposal. No, we'll not give it to you. Okay, because that needs huge commitment. But whether it's a biomedical waste disposal, yes. If you prove it, I think there is a story.
But there are not very many startups actively in that area. What is stopping them from?
I think there are definitive regulatory challenges, and plus, in my view, it is not something which is very attractive, sexy.
Lucrative.
Okay.
So you don't get many investors in that area?
I have not seen it. I've seen only simple players who have been doing it. They have moved gradually up in the value chain by learning the tricks of the game, by following the regulations which are coming from time to time, and knowing the environmental aspects of the disposal, which is very important. And they have moved it, but I have not seen any radical idea or a disruptive idea or transformational idea in this space as of now.
So you mean to say the entry barrier here is regulatory?
Not regulatory. Regulatory barrier, regulatory definitions are very strong. It is very important.
One need to adhere to that very strongly.
And then say that within that boundaries, how do I do more? How do I do more value? How do I do it more productively? How do I do more proactively?
Very nice, very nice. Those who are watching our channel, those aspirants who want to become a startup entrepreneur, healthcare industry is bound to grow exponentially in this country. Rajiv Sikka, the Chief Information Officer for Medanta Group of Hospitals, is here with us, exchanging his ideas, giving some tips, telling us how the startup ecosystem can benefit from the growing healthcare industry in the country. Thank you so much, Rajiv.
Thank you for
joining.
Super interacting with you.
And thank you so much, viewers, watching us in Startups for Breakfast. Signing off, Ravi Venkatraman. Thank you so much, Rajiv.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Academic.